You are watching Bygone Treasures, your source for everything history and geopolitics, now in session.
Some of the unfortunate farmers whose wheat crops have been trampled down by hordes of emus.
The emu, a big flightless bird that is native to Australia and is noted for its strong legs and disrespect for fences, was the person who posed the threat. Farmers in Western Australia, who were already trying to make ends meet due to the Great Depression, were faced with additional challenges as these hardy birds destroyed their crops.
They've never used this sort of scarifier before, but things are desperate, and it's war to a finish this time.
To find a solution, the government of Australia decided to intervene, which ultimately resulted in the peculiar incident that came to be known as the Great Emu War. In the year 1932, the tall birds that are endemic to Australia, known as emus, had developed into a considerable problem. Farmers in Western Australia were in a state of desperation as these hardy critters wreaked havoc on their crops, which were already going through a difficult time due to the Great Depression.
Prosperity is just around the corner, say the hopeful headlines. But around the corners wind the lengthening bread lines.
Following the conclusion of World War I, Australian soldiers were provided with land to cultivate, but they quickly discovered that they were contending with a new foe. Massive herds of emus numbering in the tens of thousands descended onto the wheat fields of Western Australia as a result of the drought that was occurring. Even though they were unable to fly, these big birds were able to destroy fences with their muscular legs, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The farmers were left with nothing but trampled fields and crushed hopes for a rich harvest as a result of the comprehensive consumption of their crops. The farmers whose means of subsistence were being threatened asked for assistance. In response to the calls for assistance that were received by the government in Canberra, an unexpected answer was developed. The decision to send the military was made by the administration, which would later be met with both humour and amazement from all parties involved. When soldiers were dispatched to the battlegrounds of the emu, they were armed with Lewis guns, which were rapid-fire machine guns. These Lewis guns were a novel and revolutionary weapon for their day. Their mission was to drive the feathered invaders back. It was in November of 1932 that the troops and the emus had their first brush with one another. This was the beginning of the attempted conflict. The emus, on the other hand, immediately demonstrated that they were a formidable adversary. When the birds dispersed into smaller groups, it became more difficult for the soldiers to efficiently attack them. The soldiers, despite their greatest efforts, were unable to have a major influence regardless of their efforts. In terms of strategy and weaponry, the soldiers anticipated an easy victory because they were armed with Lewis machine guns. The emus, on the other hand, were difficult to capture due to their speed and agility. Because of the birds' unpredictable movements, the machine guns were rendered entirely ineffective. The birds were capable of running at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour. These feathered foes also possessed astonishing agility as they were able to weave between fields and avoid bullets with startling ease. They were challenging targets for the Lewis guns because of their long legs and exceptional eyesight, which made them difficult to attack. The result was that the emus were able to outwit the soldiers at every turn. Even though more than 2,500 rounds of ammunition were used, the early attempts to reduce their population were a complete and utter failure. There were only a few emu casualties as a result of the efforts of the soldiers, which led to several unsuccessful assaults and ultimately the retreat of the military. The initial efforts that were made to reduce the number of emus appeared to be successful. It was stated by soldiers that they had killed hundreds of birds during the initial fights. The emus, on the other hand, swiftly readjusted. They became so dispersed that it was practically hard to hit them on open ground because they learned to scatter whenever they heard gunshots. These disheartening losses, in conjunction with the emus' astonishing tenacity, they were able to survive bullet wounds in several cases, exposed the limitations of a military approach. What follows? Following the conclusion of the Great Emu War, the farmers continued to struggle with the issue of emus on their land. The emus continued to inflict damage on the crops despite the fact that the troops had been removed and there was no viable solution in place. The farmers were forced to continuously deal with the damage to their fields, which resulted in financial difficulties and additional frustration. In a short amount of time, the war grew into a logistical nightmare due to the mounting costs and the media frenzy. Soldiers who were accustomed to fighting against human adversaries had a difficult time adapting to the strategies employed by the emus. The amount of money spent on ammunition increased, and there were tales of thousands of rounds being fired with very little effect. After the odd fight became widely known, the media enthusiastically coined the now famous name Emu War. The term has now become widely used. The audience devoured the news, displaying a mixture of laughter and incredulity at the spectacle of troops engaging in combat with birds that were significantly larger than themselves. 1932 was the year that the military was compelled to withdraw from the conflict after a brief and somewhat embarrassing campaign. The conflict known as the Emu War resulted in a draw, demonstrating the inadequacies of using physical force against the complex organisms that are found in nature. The Emu War may have been a military setback, but it became a source of national pleasure for Australia. This is Australia's legacy of humour. Cartoons made fun of the soldiers, and the emus were immortalised as creatures that were tenacious and resourceful for all time. This confrontation served as a sobering reminder of the difficulties associated with wildlife control, even though it was humorous. The need for more sustainable solutions and a deeper knowledge of the delicate balance that exists between humans and nature was brought to light as a result of this revelation. The tremendous Emu War was able to grab the imagination of the people of Australia, and it immediately became a source of tremendous pleasure as a result of the media reports that presented it as a series of comedic antics that would not appear out of place in a Looney Tunes cartoon. On the other hand, it was the infliction of agony on tens of thousands of farmers who were deprived of their means of subsistence and forced into poverty. In the end, it was a serious matter, and regardless of how humorous the war was, a great number of people were forced to become homeless and struggled to preserve their lives. Sadly, a great number of emus also perished. With time, the Great Emu War has made its way into popular culture. Due to the fact that this historical event is both a source of pride and disgrace for the people of Australia, the internet is replete with memes that convert it into a hilarious joke. Over the past few years, the narrative has garnered even more attention, and in the year 2023, production began on a film that would be based on the events and would be written by John Cleese. The Great Emu War remains one of history's most unusual conflicts, a curious blend of comedy and tragedy that encapsulates humanity's complex relationship with nature. While the conflict itself ended in an embarrassing retreat for the Australian military, its legacy endures as a tale of resilience, both human and avian, and a reminder of the challenges posed by wildlife management. For the farmers, the war was far from amusing. Their livelihoods were severely impacted by the ongoing destruction caused by the emus, and despite the military intervention, no lasting solution was found. The struggle left many farmers in financial ruin, highlighting the serious consequences of human-wildlife conflict during a time of widespread economic hardship. For the emus, the war demonstrated their adaptability and survival instincts. Despite thousands of rounds of ammunition fired, the emus emerged largely unscathed, showcasing their remarkable speed, agility, and tenacity. Tragically, however, many emus were killed during the campaign, underscoring the often painful intersection of human intervention and natural ecosystems. In the decades since, the Great Emu War has taken on a new life as a cultural phenomenon. It is simultaneously a symbol of human folly and a humorous anecdote celebrated in memes, cartoons, and even films. Its absurdity has captured the imaginations of people worldwide, turning it into a source of both laughter and reflection. Yet beneath the humour lies an important lesson. The Emu War is a poignant reminder of the need for sustainable and humane solutions to wildlife conflicts. It underscores the delicate balance between human progress and the natural world, a balance that, if upset, can lead to unintended consequences. Ultimately, the Great Emu War serves as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the resilience of life, leaving an enduring mark on Australia's history and a legacy of humour, humility, and hard-earned wisdom. This has been Bygone Treasures. Enjoyed this content? Don't forget to like, subscribe for more updates, and share your thoughts in the comments below.